As she held his things in her arms, tears ran down her face. She thought she was ready because she knew how most military spouses felt. But things would end in a way that nobody saw coming. When she opened his laptop to look at the pictures they had taken together, she found something very odd. It was a strange message that would make someone do something. The day she married Mark was the happiest day of Emily's life. She thought that she and her husband would have a happy life together. But soon, his job would make it hard for him to reach these goals. Her husband was an officer in the US military. He loved his country very much and would do anything to fight for it. Mark's best day was when Brittany, their first child, was born to Emily. He loved her more than he loved anything else. But his next mission was coming up, and he would have to leave. Emily knew that being with a soldier meant having to deal with things like this. Soon, he would go to Afghanistan, and she would be on her own with their child. She didn't want him to leave because she had heard terrible things about soldiers who were sent to Afghanistan. He should have only been there for 6 months. But that wasn't how things would turn out. She knew that the message led to a set of coordinates. She felt her heart beat like a runner in the Olympics trying to win gold. During the first 6 months of his deployment, she talked to him on FaceTime when he could afford it. Only the thought that her husband would soon come back kept her going. But every time she spent hours getting the house ready for Mark to come home, the phone would ring with scary news. Hubby was the name of the person in her phone. She smiled and thought he was going to tell her when he was coming, but it was something much worse. He said that his flight would be late, and he quickly hung up the phone. Emily could tell by the sound of his voice that he was scared, and she wondered what was wrong. Since it had been days, she was getting worried. She couldn't get rid of the feeling that something very wrong was going on. After more than a week, someone from the US Army called her. He told her that her husband had gone missing. After looking for Mark for 2 whole months and not being able to find him, the US Army sent his things back to his family. Emily took his things while crying uncontrollably. What was wrong with him? How come they couldn't find him? He couldn't just have vanished. Emily called every agency she could think of to find out where he was. She didn't know that the answer was right in front of her. Emily had to wait another month before she worked up the courage to go through Mark's things and open his laptop. She was going to look at the photos he had saved, but when she opened the laptop and saw a file for her blood ran cold. The letter was meaningless. It was a love letter, but there were many spelling and grammar mistakes in it. Then I got it. This message was hard to understand, but it had a pattern. Emily ran to get a pen and wrote down all the capital letters and numbers that were out of place. Send help. Then she just stared at the numbers, not sure what to do. Was it a number for a phone? She put the numbers into Google, but all she got back was a set of coordinates. It wasn't even close to Afghanistan. She turned the numbers around and looked for them again. Her heart was beating quickly. He was in trouble, that was clear. But why did he try to help her? What did he get himself into? The coordinates led to one of Kandahar's last schools that was still open. How did he get there? She was scared and didn't know where to turn. But time was against her. She did what she thought was best, which was to call his US Army base. They asked her to give them his file right away and told her they would look into the situation right away. Within a week, Emily heard what was going on. The school was just a lie to fool the American troops. It turned out to be a secret prison. 12 soldiers were being held there, but their raid freed them. Why, though, did Mark ask his wife for help instead of his team? Mark was about to leave when he got a last-minute mission. He knew it was risky, and he knew something might go wrong because there had been reports of soldiers who had gone missing. He had seen the school in question a few times before and knew that the enemy patrolled it. He risked his own life when he thought this was a secret prison. And sending a note to Emily? He knew that if he disappeared, the laptop could end up in the wrong hands, or else it would end up with her. She was the only one who could figure out what he was saying and get in touch with his base in the US, where they had the technology to check out the school. Once they realized that the school was just a cover, they sent in the rescue mission. And Mark? Mark made it home safely to his loving family, and he had a lot to tell them. Before Emily found out where he was, he had been locked up in the hidden jail for 3 months. He was happy to see his girls again, and Emily was more than happy to have him back home safely.